Heavy rain across parts of the south and southeast, and that is going to be the story for the entire week and into next weekend. Nice weather in the northeast into the midweek, but changes coming there too. And Tropical Storm Bret, which I misspelt, it's only with one T, forms in the Atlantic. All of that and more on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Get your truck over to Omni, whether you are a professional landscaper or maybe just a do-it-yourselfer like me. Uh, get all the mulch and topsoil and sand and anything else you need to make your home or your business look great on the outside. 631-756-1125. Nowhere can you find better prices in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
and Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing weather network on the planet. They also have other weather merchandise, electronics, gadgets, and gizmos, and even weather fashion. So use the referral link that's on the descriptor to this video and will shortly be pinned to the top of the chat board. And if you use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is a good idea if you use it, what do you get? Joe Rayo, tell us.
10% off. And William Huber, I don't know if they have a clover killer for me. They are popping back up again. They generally pop up, these little white clovers on my lawn, 3 to 4 days after I do the lawn. So it looks like I'm going to have to mow them down again sometime later on this week.
Well, why not just let the deer eat it or the rabbits?
Nah, Joe, come on.
Hang on. I'm trying to do three things at once here. Well, what's wrong with letting the rabbits eat them?
Well, if they can pick out each particular clover, because I don't even know if we have rabbits anymore. We had rabbits about 20 years ago, and I think the last time we saw one was back in 2006 or 2008 or whatever. But I gotta do the lawn, so
Right. Well,
I let the lawn grow, 5 or 6 inches high with all this white stuff sprinkled in between. So,
well, I, on the other hand, I've been very careful in my landscaping here to make sure that I leave enough natural growth, but I did also have to, because we have a lot of deer, and they'll eat just about everything. So I had to put down some deer scram
okay, well,
to keep them away. And actually, there was one last night. I heard him in the bushes, and
but you've had quite a bit of rain, haven't you, Joe?
yeah, over the had a half an inch today, which was nice. Had some self-destructive sunshine this afternoon, and we just had another downpour go by a little while ago, and I managed to squeeze a little weed whacking and landscaping in between. So I did well.
Okay.
All right.
It looks like any hopes of above normal temperatures, at least here in the Northeast, are going to be put aside for a while because um, it looks, at least to me, like we're going to be either at normal or even a bit below normal. Now, maybe right on through the end of the month.
Well, certainly with the way that where this high is building in across from the Great Lakes to New England, you're going to have an onshore flow starting to, east winds pretty much from tomorrow on. So, yeah, there's no way, that there's no way you're going to get to see, let's call them summer-like temperatures, and 90 plus. And I think as we move through the middle of the week, you're going to probably start to see at least more clouds in the mix too with the onshore flow, and then there's that moisture that's going to try to nose its way up the coast Thursday, later in the week, Thursday and Friday. So I agree with you. It's a troughing in the east like this with this sort of blockiness that we have. It is a cooler than normal pattern, and then for me in the southeast. We're stuck in rain, or at least not all the time. It comes in waves, but we are, seeing large clusters of showers and thunderstorms that are going to develop every afternoon, and some places in the south and southeast are going to get pounded with many inches of rain over the next 7 days.
I think a lot of cloud cover here tomorrow. Clouds will thin, and we may just have high clouds to deal with the sunshine on Wednesday. Not a bad day for Thursday, but then, as you just pointed out, clouds are going to make a comeback here late in the week, probably on Friday. And I hate to say this now, and hopefully things are going to change, but you look at the model's face value, and you can see that Saturday, Sunday, and yes, maybe even Monday as well of next week are going to be wet around here with showers and a few periods of rain and maybe a thunderstorm or two thrown in. So for the first weekend of summer, which officially arrives on Wednesday at 10:58 a.m. Eastern Time, first summer weekend looks to be a rather wet first summer weekend.
Meanwhile, it is today is the 19th of June. And back in 2017, Joe, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Tropical Storm Bret formed in the tropical Atlantic. So by 4 hours, it retains the number one position here as the earliest tropical storm to have formed. The 2017 version of Tropical Storm Bret. The 2023 version of Tropical Storm Bret is the second earliest ever to form in the tropical Atlantic. However, it is the furthest east that a tropical cyclone has ever been observed in the month of June.
Yeah, we were talking about this last week. We don't usually see tropical systems out, let's say, toward the coast of Africa or even the middle part of the Atlantic Ocean in June, climatologically speaking.
Usually not till the end of July, at the earliest, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unfavorable time for something like this to happen now, but it has happened, and so let me also point out, in what is assumed to be an El Nino summer, where El Nino is supposed to suppress formation of tropical systems, you'd say to yourself, oh, well, then that means we're not going to see much in the way of tropical activity until maybe sometime late July or even into August. And here we have, in an El Nino summer, the very first one forming in the middle or mid to late June.
I've been I've been thinking about this over the last couple of days. I wonder, you and I occasionally have talked about the fact that how sometimes the atmosphere has muscle memory and holds on to a pattern, even though when you look at things and you say, okay, this should not be happening, but the repetition of a similar pattern, and I just wonder whether the fact that, coming off these 3 straight La Nina years, and La Nina just shut down 4 months or so ago, and now we're getting this El Nino that's expanding. So I wonder if we're at least now in this sort of early stage where the El Nino has not really spread its impacts across the atmosphere because it's young. I mean, it just formed. So I wonder whether we're still sort of holding on to a little bit of muscle memory from the La Nina pattern with regards to seeing these early tropical cyclones that we're seeing, particularly this one. And the other thing is, with Bret, and I mean, this is a really, I have to tell you, I'm really impressed by the look here on the satellite for a system out there. I mean, there's absolutely no shear that I can see at all. There's plenty of moisture. There's a lot of times this time of year, there's a lot of dry air out in the Atlantic. Not the case this time around. There's a lot of low and mid-level moisture available to this. This is a fairly impressive looking satellite for a system that just got upgraded to a tropical storm. But I'll just go back to the fact that over the last 3 winter seasons, Joe, we've not really seen a whole lot of storm activity overall, non-tropical storm activity in the winter season in the Atlantic Ocean. We've had a number of stretches where we had that sort of fire hose jet across the Atlantic where everything was going west to east and there was no storms of any consequence. No, those big wrapped up storms that function as an upweller and cool the ocean down. And over the course of the last couple of years, we look at the ocean water temperatures in the Atlantic. I mean, they're out of control. I mean, they're way above normal from the equator all the way up to Greenland.
It would be interesting to see who was it, Frank Riccio. Now, I'm not sure if he's correct. I'm not WPC maybe, not WTC. WTC is World Trade Center, Frank. But he says the WTC, or maybe it's the WPC, that they think that this hurricane season will be front end loaded. So that maybe
and that may be the case. That might be the case. Certainly, this is getting this time in June certainly would support that idea. And there have been seasons, by the way. I can't remember what year. This is going way back. That there were five named storms by the time we got to the end of June, maybe it was the end of June and July combined, and then the rest of the season was like there was there were a couple of other tropical storms and hurricanes after that, but the first five came very fast. I think even for the longest time, it held the record for the fastest we've ever gone to 5 storms before one of the more recent years took it out in the 2000 to 2023 period. So maybe it will be front end loaded.
Frank Riccio says, I meant TWC, Joe. So he was referencing the Weather Channel.
Okay.
So who is their tropical expert now at the Weather Channel?
I have no clue.
I don't watch the Weather Channel anymore. I really don't. Every time I turn the Weather Channel on, I'm getting a documentary about something that happened 35 years ago or whatever.
No. I have the Weather Channel, AccuWeather, and Fox Weather on my DirecTV stream, and I don't watch any of the weather channels at all. I haven't watched them in years. By the way, a big thanks and big hugs to Anthony Orr for giving me a lot of this information. He's our resident tropical storm hurricane data finder.
He's our John Hope.
Yes. And he just sent me a message to say, with Bret forming in the central tropical Atlantic, that this is the farthest east that a tropical storm is formed in the tropical Atlantic, which is south of 23.5 degrees north, this early in the calendar year. And that's, by the way, a reference of Philip Klotzbach, which I think he's with Colorado State University. So the other thing, what I mentioned earlier, I'll read how he wrote it. The system in question, this was earlier today when they thought Bret would be upgraded tomorrow and not today. The earliest was the 2017 Tropical Storm Bret, which became a tropical storm at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the 19th of June. And this one became a tropical storm at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the 19th of June. So by 3 hours.
Yeah. What's 3 hours among friends?
What's 3 hours among friends is right. Oh, and that's my buddy Mike Panici, because I left the Facebook page up there. Okay. All right, let me go back to that satellite loop. I'm a little sloppy tonight after a couple of days off. But again, the convection is really clustered. It has a well-defined center here. And this thing looks like it's going to strengthen. And who knows? It might even eventually get to hurricane strength for a brief time as it makes its way toward the west. And the hurricane center's 5 p.m. position. We're not on 3-hourly advisories yet because there are no tropical storm watches or warnings up. So 11.3 north, 42.2 west. That's about 1,300 miles east of the Windward Islands, just as a reference point. Top winds are 40 miles an hour moving west at 21, and you can see on their forecast that they have it as a tropical storm through Wednesday morning, and by Wednesday afternoon they have it as a hurricane, and they have it moving through the middle of the Lesser Antilles sometime Thursday night, and then somewhere south of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic by Friday night and Saturday, assuming that they're correct on the strength. I mean, there's there is going to be some shear when it gets the next 2 days. The conditions look really favorable for development. Beyond that, though, there's going to be some troughing there in the Eastern Caribbean that's probably going to produce some shear. So we're going to have to see what kind of impact that has on the system as it makes its approach.
Even though it apparently will not on this map make a direct hit on Puerto Rico, it's going to come close enough to Puerto Rico so that I'm sure they're going to be going through, on Friday and Saturday, strong gusty winds and squally rains, and I'm sure there'll also be some power outages. That poor island has had nothing but problems over the last decade with tropical systems, more than I think any other decade in the last 50 or 60 years. But here we go again. And a lot of people probably were saying, well, at least it's June. We don't have to worry about this for the moment. Nope, not quite that way. And we'll see how this all plays out.
So I'm just going to take a look at this shows the wind shear at the levels from 5,000 feet up to 25,000 feet. So I'm just going to roll this back as it makes its approach. And I'm using the GFS view here. So the GFS, which, as we know, loves to spin things up into hurricanes at will, or at least that's what it's shown the tendency to do so far in the last number of weeks. So, the others were fictitious and never materialized, which was no shock. So it does look as if it's got a fairly strong high in the upper layers of the atmosphere as it approaches the islands, although on this run, it did not really strengthen it much beyond, say, a strong tropical storm strength. And then it starts to get involved in some shear. You can see it here, the low center approaching the middle part of those islands there, and there that patch of orange is sort of like it's like 35 to 40 knots of wind shear that's being indicated. And the reason for that is if you look up to the northwest of it, there is a trough right in here. There's an upper trough right there that it's moving into. So that might cause this thing to weaken when it gets there, but I'd be a little hesitant because sometimes when these things look really impressive early on, they tend to carry that part of the atmosphere with them and then hold on longer, that strengthen stronger and hold on longer than advertised. So it's also
like sheer momentum, so to speak.
Right. And this is the first one of the season, so we're getting back on the bicycle. I mean, the A storm didn't count. I mean, that was just nonsense from a couple of weeks ago. But that shear is going to be there when it gets into the Northwest Caribbean, so that may bode well for keeping this down at least under her, keeping it somewhere into tropical storm strength. There's a second wave behind this one too, by the way, which the models are picking up on and developing. And you can see there's a low there on the map this is for Sunday morning when it's got a low center over Puerto Rico with Bret, and then it's got another low center well east of the northern Leeward Islands that's moving northward, and that would sort of make sense because there's only so much room. Yeah,
I mean,
you just don't.
This time of the year, you don't. I mean, this time of the year, all right, if it's September, October, yeah, but now you don't see, two systems so close together,
particularly coming off the African coast.
Yeah,
I mean, it is just kind of crazy, but that's what it's doing. And I'll go down to the surface here so we can take a look at this. From what we'll use the North Atlantic view because then we could see it from the perspective of the U.S. as well because this is so far away. But there's the low this evening right there at 11:42. That's Bret, and you can see the model starts to form a second low there at about 10:31 during the day tomorrow, and carries them both along. Actually, gets it down to a 9.9. The second one down to a 9.98. These two things are not that far apart. They're only, one's going to be roughly at about 50 west, and the other one's they're only about 700 or 800 miles apart here.
Yeah.
And then they just sort of move along, and the furthest east one turns north, and then what's left of Bret reforms north of the Bahamas, and then rides up somewhere near Bermuda on this run. I mean, it still has a identifiable feature as it takes it up the coast of Nova Scotia in about 13 days. But who knows how real that is?
Yeah. You can see the Atlantic the Canadian Environmental Canada issuing some kind of a advisory. Don't forget, July 1st is Canada Day. So, it would be interesting to see if they had some kind of a threat from a tropical system coinciding with one of their major national holidays this year. We'll see.
And just speaking of the Canadian model, I figured I'd bring it up, and it doesn't even barely recognize that it barely recognizes it that it's there on today's run, and it just kind of has a weak system that goes into the islands and then just goes away, and the one behind it also just pretty much falls apart as it moves northwestward, away from any land areas. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a very dynamic looking pattern overall with everything that's happening. But we'll come back to the surface map and take a look at what's going on in the east. Meanwhile, we've got an upper low that is spinning in Kentucky and Tennessee, and you can see the rotation there, and making for a very cold and unstable atmosphere aloft. And we're getting earlier today there were a lot more showers and thunderstorms. Now they seem to be more scattered in nature, but there's a lot of clouds here, and this upper low is going nowhere. So look for more showers and thunderstorms in the coming days. From Virginia southward down through the southeast and into Florida, and then west along the lower Gulf part of the Gulf states to about maybe southeast Louisiana, but cloudy there, and some high clouds have actually kind of pushed up into Long Island and the Hudson Valley, just some thin high clouds there, and what was otherwise a pretty nice day, and it got to the middle 80s in parts of South Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania and points south today.
Yeah, it was a nice warm day out here. Now we have the clouds, and on my Facebook forecast, actually, Joe, I'm saying considerable cloudiness tonight, considerable cloudiness tomorrow, and mostly cloudy tomorrow night. So if we see any sun tomorrow, it should be very limited in visibility, and I think more often than not, we're going to be looking at a lot of clouds and that east wind, but no precipitation.
No. I think your first chance of precip might be Thursday. You might have enough to come up from the south to get into some areas, might get into some showers on Thursday.
Yeah, maybe. But mostly southern. I mean, on Thursday, if there's any precip, I would say it would be south of New York City, from New York City on south. The Hudson Valley probably is going to stay dry at least through Thursday. The further north you go, the drier it will be, and maybe even the sunnier it will be. But eventually that stuff to the south is going to work its way northward and set the stage for what I just noted a few moments ago, a little while ago. It looks like a rather wet first weekend of summer.
By the way, it's dry in the plains. I mean, it's just clear skies through most of the plains. I'm also noticing there's not a whole lot, there's a little bit of that milky white, hazy, film that represents the wildfire smoke haze, but there's not a lot of it today. I mean, there was a little bit of a concentration in a few places around Philadelphia, down into Delaware and Maryland, and then in a few other places out to in the Midwest. But on the whole, it's not nearly as impressive, let's say, as it was back last week and before that.
And let's also point out that in portions of the central and southern plains, Texas, they're going through an extreme period of heat. I mean, I saw one report, a heat index in Corpus Christi, your old stomping grounds, Joe, of like 125 degrees.
Wow. Well, wow. Here's the watches and warnings map. You can see there's a spattering of air quality alerts, by the way, in southeast PA and in Maryland, southwest PA, also a couple of counties in parts of eastern North Carolina. Got flash flood watches up for the mountains of North Carolina, and also down in southern Alabama. You've got some air quality issues around the Great Lakes and back up in Minnesota. But yeah, look at this. I mean, this is all heat advisories and excessive heat warnings for much of central East Texas and for the coastal bend, and also for much of Louisiana. I just want to check. So let's take a look at what's going on in Houston right now, just for temperature.
Oh
92.
boy.
All right, 92, which is nothing. You know, that's nothing. That's not crazy. That's more typical. I'm trying to see if they have um, on their sites. Oh, here we go. So here are some temperatures. Now, the coastal bend of South Texas is kind of weird because if you're right along the immediate coast, you get the breeze off the Gulf, so that helps to hold temperatures down. But you go inland, and then you got problems. So in the Texas Hill Country, for example, Del Rio, that's way inland, obviously. That's 100. Del Rio's 109 with a dew point of 66.
Ah, ow,
Okay. I
ow.
mean, that comes out with a 25% relative humidity, but that's still, that's hot. And it's dry, but it's not, it could certainly be drier. 109 for Del Rio, as I said. Laughlin Air Force Base, 106. Hondo, Texas, 101. Let's go to Central and South. So San Antonio's 102. Austin is 97 with a dew point of 68. Uh, LaGrange is 95. Gonzales is 98. Then into Southeast Texas, we've got 100 at Huntsville, Texas, and 100 at College Station. It's hot. I mean, I've seen it far hotter than this, but it certainly is, uh, let's call it uncomfortably hot. Why don't we take a look at some North Texas? Dallas Fort Worth is 96. Love Field is 95. Fort Worth is 97. The Naval, well, I don't know. Fort Worth NAS, is that that can't be Naval Air Station, or maybe it is. 90, I don't know. 99. Arlington 97. The Texas Rangers must be having fun with that. So yes, quite hot. I might as well check New Orleans because they're under that same. Let's check
Now,
New.
you talk about baseball. The Mets start a 3-game series today or this evening in Houston. Now, they're playing at Minute Maid Park. And I think, I would hope in Houston that Minute Maid Park has at the very least a retractable roof and they can play indoors in an air-conditioned comfort. I would hate to think that you try to play baseball games in Houston during the summertime without a roof and without air conditioning.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, right. All right, let's look at the regional roundup here from. So New Orleans is. I'm just looking at some of the numbers in New Orleans. I mean, it's nothing crazy. New Orleans. Now this is soup, Joe, because I live there, and I mean, it is really soupy, humid. 92 with a dew point of 77, and
Ouch.
the heat that
Oh,
comes to a heat index of 105. The lakefront was 93. It was actually warmer at the lakefront than it was at the international airport. 93 with a dew point of 78, and the humidity that works out to a relative humidity of 61%. Yeah, this is typical. One of the things about Southeast Louisiana is unless in odd circumstances, they don't get to 100 very often there. Oftentimes, it's mostly low 90s on a daily basis with the 3 o'clock in the afternoon thunderstorm. That's pretty much how New Orleans works.
yeah, it's rough. It's tough. I've been exposed to those types of conditions on a few occasions in my life, especially when I've been down in Florida. But to live down there and to have to experience this from, like, say, May to November, I don't I don't think so.
Leon Probitsky hit the tip jar. Thank you, Leon. Most appreciated. And here's the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic State satellite view, and a little bit of that milky, smoky film that you see, the haze. Some patchy clouds coming in. Cloud cover gets heavier. We've got a few lightning strikes going on in northern West Virginia, northern Virginia, and also on the east side of Chesapeake Bay, and a few others popping up in parts of North Carolina. But it was quite numerous. What was thunderstorm wise here during this morning, overnight and this morning, and then after about 9 or 10 o'clock, it just sort of started to shut down. And here's the latest radar view this evening. in the southeast. I'll give it another quick look. We do have a tornado warning here in North Carolina. I'm trying to visualize where that could be. It's not close to Charlotte, but you see the red box and also a flash flood warning that went up there. But you've got downpours and some thunderstorms all over the place. And also in Florida, we've got patches around Jacksonville, some north of Tampa, and a bunch in southeast Florida. Also, some heavy thunderstorms coming off of Mississippi, southeast of Gulfport, Biloxi, moving out into the Gulf of Mexico with special marine warnings and some flash flood warnings up in and around Mobile. There's also some activity around the center of the upper low back in Ohio and Kentucky, some scattered showers and storms. There's a couple. One just went by me just a little while ago in northeast Georgia, and then we've got some showers and storms back up from Montana into Idaho and Utah and on up in the Pacific Northwest. The Storm Prediction Center with the categorical risk zones tonight, slight in the southeast, marginal up into southern Virginia, also marginal to slight risk in central Texas. We've got slight risk in eastern Montana and western North Dakota. And there is some elevated tornado risk along the Gulf Coast of 2 to 5%, although we got the tornado warning in North Carolina, but they're showing less than 2% risk there. So even sometimes when they don't show the risk of 2%, it does happen. Tomorrow, it's a little more subdued from the standpoint of severe weather. The central Gulf Coast, Louisiana to Mississippi, marginal risk to Florida, southern Georgia. Back also marginal risk into East Texas, and then we've got marginal to slight risk up in the Dakotas and parts of Nebraska, general thunderstorms elsewhere. And day 3, which is Wednesday into Thursday, quiet in the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic, back to the Great Lakes and northern Ohio Valley, general thunderstorms in the southeast, marginal risk to the southeast of the southern mid-Atlantic, and marginal risk in the western plains. And take a look at the rainfall. WPC has now pushed up the 1.5 inches of liquid, Joe. This is through next Monday evening, right up to the Hudson Valley and into western Massachusetts and northwest Connecticut. And they've got the 2-inch plus, a little patch of 2-inch plus in eastern PA. And then you see the big amounts in Maryland, particularly Virginia, North Carolina, to South Carolina. That orange area represents 4 inches or more. Let's say 4 to 7 inches in that orangish band that you see there, that closed off orange area in southwest Virginia, much of North Carolina and northern South Carolina, and also along and just off the Gulf Coast, showing a band of really heavy rain there. But a lot of that is offshore, but some of it touches land there in Florida and touches southeast Louisiana. Also some big rains in the central and northern plains, 1.5 to 3 inches in some places, back across into Montana and into the northern Rockies. So a pretty wet pattern here that is setting up for the east.
You know, it's always difficult in the summertime to try to pin down, get a precise number. I mean, you say, well, you know, it's such a wide spread, 4 to 7 or 5 to 8 inches, something like that. But it's difficult when you have the potential for convection. I mean, you have a couple of, you know, locally heavy thunderstorms that could put down like 2-3 inches right there in that one zone where they occur. That's why you need to spread out the numbers in situations like this. And up here, yeah, 1.5 inches, I'll go with that. It looks like, as I said, Saturday, Sunday, and even next Monday look wet. And I could even see, Joe, amounts in excess of 1.5 inches over that 3-day period here in the Hudson Valley. We'll see.
Well, you know, you got the southerly, you know, we talked last week about the fact that this cutoff low was going to create a southerly flow along the East Coast. And right now, when you look at the upper air, it's at least temporarily suppressed because of the fact that we do have an upper low near Nova Scotia and a northerly flow that comes down and cuts off just south of, say, New York City and northern New Jersey. And then, of course, you've got this thing over here, and you start to see the southerly flow up through the Carolinas. Come on, give me that second arrow. All right, that's as good as it's going to get. And then we've got a deep trough that's coming in to the western part of the United States. So it's a rather blocky looking pattern, and it's hot in Texas because they've got the big ridge, the big upper high that's sitting just to their south and is nosing in. My touch screen is being very obnoxious tonight, but this is sort of how it looks like here. There's your ridge, and this upper low is pretty much trapped in the southeast. There's the ridge is going to build over the top. The trough in the east finally pulls out, and this is where we start to get into Thursday, where you start to see the flow around that upper low that's sitting in eastern Tennessee, and suddenly the southerly flow gets up to almost to New York City, and actually beyond New York City. So this is Thursday morning. And now, if this is correct, I think you're going to see some rain come up on Thursday, if it looks like this.
Yeah, well, the protracted or prolonged spell of cloud-filled skies, plus the easterly wind, is going to lead to a prolonged period of below normal temperatures in much of the Northeast. And at this time of the year, like for example today was wonderful. It got at least to where at my house it got to 80. I think it actually got a little warmer than that, but that's it. That's normal for this time of the year. But as I mentioned to Renata, a little while ago, I said, get ready, because tomorrow and Wednesday and probably Thursday, we're looking at temperatures that are going to be in the mid and low 70s. And there may be, with enough cloud cover, there could even be one day that we could see temperatures struggle just to make it above 70 degrees. This is mid to late June, folks. Summer officially arrives on Wednesday at 10:58 in the morning Eastern Time. High is 83, according to the executive producer here at Metro Radio.
We haven't heard her announce on the Macy's intercom in a long time.
Yeah, well, the intercom works. Let's put it that way.
Well, here's your look at the upper low. I mean, it goes nowhere. It's just so trapped down there in the southeast. There's nothing to kick it out. There's a ridge. The ridge is between what's going on in the west. You got a ridge to the west of that. You've got ridging to the east of that. You've got an upper high that's building across southern Canada over the top, and the upper low just sits there over Kentucky and Tennessee. Now we're into Friday. Starts to finally get some legs to it on Saturday, but all it does is really shift to just along the Appalachians. And there it is on Sunday. The upper low is somewhere in western New York. Finally, you get something from the west that comes over the top and helps to, you would think that would kick it out, but instead it just sort of drops in for Monday. So you still got problems for Monday with regards to rain, as that next trough amplifies a bit as it approaches the coast. And here too, Joe, it doesn't get kicked out to the northeast. It just sort of hangs there and gradually weakens, but it's still there for at least the first half of next week, if this is right. It's only beyond that. There's another trough that drops down into the east as we go into the first days of July.
Yeah, sometimes what happens is you got these lingering or leftover upper level systems that sit there, and while they're not immediately evident on the upper level maps, you get a system coming in from the west. It just kind of like it's like that system from the west falling into a hole, so to speak, and opening the door again for unsettled conditions. That's apparently what's going to happen later on in the week and into the weekend.
So here's the GFS surface, which for you snow lovers, you ought to look at the southwestern Canada, because there's blue on the screen there tonight, up in Vancouver and some of the mountains there. I'm sorry, British Columbia. So there.
That looks like up toward Banff and Jasper.
Could be. Could be. All right, so here's your surface look. So the upper low flares up again with some showers overnight into tomorrow morning from Virginia. Actually, even has some rain. It's probably a loft, but it's got it down to on the Pennsylvania side of the Maryland border. And then, of course, the high just kind of presses it southward. But you see the southeast. It's not raining continuously everywhere. There are areas where it's just cloudy. The sun even comes through. When the sun came out a couple of times today, this afternoon, Joe, is because of the upper low. It's complete self-destructive sunshine. Within about 30 minutes, it would get dark again. and you'd get another shower. So bottom line is that's going to continue all week in the south. The high is going to try to hold on. Here's Wednesday afternoon where you got showers almost to southern New Jersey. And then by Thursday morning, the GFS wants to have the rain almost to about New York City, or at least one patch of it that gets there. And then it falls apart, and then you start to get more on Friday, again in the afternoon and evening, and then it stops, and then it comes back on Saturday with numerous showers and thunderstorms for Saturday, and again on Sunday. It would almost look, the mornings may not be too bad. It's once the daytime, once we get past 11 or 12 o'clock, you're going to start to see these showers and some thunderstorms bubble up, and some places are going to probably get clobbered with some heavy rain out of this. Look at this on Monday with that next trough that drops in, and you got all these showers and storms almost in a line there from upstate New York down into South Carolina and Georgia.
Well, that's the story.
Wet, wet, wet.
And James Davidson on the chat board says, remember, folks, if we can get to 80 degrees in February, which we can get this kind of weather in June, it all balances out.
Well, yeah, exactly. I guess at the end of the day, it's all about averages. All right, let's do a little Briller Jeopardy. This is going to be a fun one tonight. A fun Briller Jeopardy. Are you ready?
I'm all set.
Okay, so now this one, the yodeler. Well, let's just say that it's going to be tougher tonight, Joe, to get by the yodeler going up the mountain.
Okay.
All right, because I looked at this. So today, what we're going to talk the subject today. Oh, come on. When you want Messenger to work, it doesn't work. Hold on a second. I've been looking forward to this all day, and I can't get Messenger up. So just give me a second here. Oh. You believe this? All right. Now let me click. Now, come on. All right, good. There it is. Okay, so this is the day after Father's Day version of Briller Jeopardy. How many days, Joe, in the year does each of these cities hit 100 degrees?
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to start off with Phoenix, folks. Phoenix. How many days does Phoenix hit 100 degrees or higher?
I will say 40.
Okay, 40.
I'm thinking that the monsoons later in the summer help to hold the temperatures down.
All right. Well, I'm going to just tell you, Joe, that you've already fallen off. You've not only fallen off the cliff, but the cliff was somewhere on the edge of the Grand Canyon. That's how far down you are.
Oh.
Okay. Spacey 11. Spacey 11, you are very close. Very close. Christina Pedia, you're too high. Environmental Coffee House and Maggie P, both of you are so close that I'm going to give it to you. Okay? You have 110. Okay? And the answer, Joe, is 111 days where the high in Phoenix goes over 100.
Which is why, by the way, I don't live in Phoenix, Arizona.
Right. You're done. All right, now let's go to the next one. Okay. Anthony Sparacchio put up 111. Good. Okay, so good. Guys did well. The next one is Las Vegas. Las Vegas, Nevada.
All right. So I'll say 95.
95. Is 95 correct? Nope, it isn't. But you're a lot closer than you were with Phoenix. Anthony Orr, you're way too high at 145. Spacey 11, you almost got it the last time, 87. Uh,
Gillis is
environmental
Professor
coffee
630.
house, you just about nailed it. Just about nailed it with 74. Everybody else is too high. Keith James is second. You're at 80, so you're not too high. The answer is 78. 78. Now the next.
Matthew Ho got it.
Oh, he did. Matthew Ho got it. 78. Yep. Very good. All right. Next is Fresno, California. Fresno,
California. Oh, dear me.
Fresno, California.
How about we're talking 100 triple-digit temperatures. I don't think Fresno would get that many, or as many as the first two. How about 50?
50. James H says 28. Tom Contino says 25. Kenneth Rosenberg said 35. And Rich Rothmansky says 36. And Patrick Darcy and William Uber both saying 36. You're closing in, folks. The answer is 38. 38 for Fresno, California. Austin, Texas.
Oh, back up we go then.
Austin, Texas.
72.
Nope, not even, way off. Keith James, 30 is in the neighborhood. Let's see, a few more guesses here. Jason Schaefer, 65. Again, this is for Austin, Texas. Leon Probitsky, 59. Steve LaPointe, 75. Tom Contino, 42. Christina Pedia, 65. You guys are all way high. The answer to Austin is what Maggie P just is close at 25. The answer is 29 for Austin. And the last one, Joe, is Salad, Texas, or Dallas. Dallas, Texas.
I'm going to get close, very close to one of these, and maybe this will be the one. How about 77?
70.
ADC degrees.
You've fallen off so many cliffs tonight. Oh, my God. No.
I agree with Keith James the
it's
second.
Hard. No, this is very hard.
Yeah.
This is very hard. Miss Fowlerite said 30. And Johnny Quest gets it. 22. 22, the average number of days that Dallas hits 100 degrees. Now, it may be different at Fort Worth, and it may be different at Arlington, but Dallas, I'm guessing it's Love Field in Dallas, is 22. Excuse me. Ooh, I'm tired. In between downpours and thunderstorms, when we had the self-destructive sunshine, I went out with my new battery-powered weed whacker and whacked weeds, and also put in 20 more plants. I had to get some landscaping in today, and then I baked a loaf of bread.
Oh, okay.
You can see what an exciting day I had. Tom, you want me to post my landscaping pictures onto YouTube? It's like, when I'm done, I'll take what I've been taking pictures. So when I'm done, I'll try to put something together. It's I'm doing this all by myself, by the way. So I don't even want to do it with a phone near me because I'm very much into my yard work right now. And that's it.
That's it. We'll be on tomorrow night at 7:35.
All right, let's announce we have a schedule change for Wednesday. So Wednesday is 8 o'clock. Okay. Correct. So we'll remind everybody tomorrow. But Wednesday is 8 o'clock. Tomorrow night we are back at 7:35. And of course, the Joe and Joe Weather Show is Brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. Use the coupon code Joe and Joe Weather Show, and you will get
10% off.
And Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. And it is hurricane season, so if you need anything regarding stuff for your house to prepare for these sorts of things if they happen, head over to Omni. The best prices you can find, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
And there I am. All right, so we'll see everybody tomorrow night. Hope you had a great you dads out there. Hope you had a great Father's Day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Nighty-night.
And many thanks to Leon Probitsky for hitting Super Chats this evening. And as far as I am concerned, Joe, I'm going to go and get the refrigerator freezer and get the leftover Fudgy the Whale that I got.
Oh, yes. Is it an Amana refrigerator freezer?
As long as it keeps the stupid whale or the ice cream cold, that's fine with me.
When I first looked at that picture, and I hadn't read through your whole post, I saw the picture. I said, that cake looks like a weird-looking tie. I guess Father's Day, you got that, it's something in the shape of a tie, and then you reveal that it was Fudgy the Whale from Carvel.
Well, somebody posted a picture of Fudgy, and then next to it, a picture of Santa Claus, and it's the same mold. The tail during the Christmas season, when you order a Santa Claus cake, ice cream cake, is the hat of Santa, and then the rest of the cake is Santa with his beard. But I'm so happy that Fudgy still exists long after Mr. Carvel himself has passed on. I don't know if they still have anything to do with Cookie Puss, but it was nice to see Fudgy this week.
Right. Well, go enjoy your ice cream, everybody. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes.